My dad cheated on my mom with my mom's best friend and got her pregnant, and he left us. I was playing this victim role. It's like, poor me, my dad was this way, until I was making tons of money and it didn't make me happy.
Welcome to Inspired by Success, the podcast where I deep dive into the mindset of successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, and thought leaders. Get ready to be inspired and gain valuable insights to unlock your true potential.
Transform your financial future with this episode sponsored by KE Financial Services.
Today, we're joined by a special guest, someone remarkable in the world of transformation and healing. She's a no-nonsense relationship coach and speaker. Her journey is a story of overcoming personal struggles, a life-changing divorce, and leaving a successful career to follow a deeper calling. She's not just about love and forgiveness. She's a certified life changer, dedicating to fixing relationships, healing family wounds, and empowering people. Get ready for a conversation diving into self-discovery, resilience, and the incredible power of forgiveness. Welcome to the show, Jeanell Greene.
Thank you, Linda.
Tell us about your story and how your past has shaped your life today.
Gosh, how much time do we have? Well, I would like to start with saying that I am Filipino, first-generation Canadian. I am 46. I've been happily, blissfully married for 17 years. My husband is my inspiration for the work that I do. And I've also gone through divorce. I know what that's like. And it was the perfect opportunity for me to really look at myself. Who am I? And what is it that I actually want for my life versus what society, our parents, our culture has told us that we should be in life. My background is sales. I was a corporate sales software representative for 20 years. And then around the time I turned 40, I had this awakening, I guess, this calling that said to me that I was meant for more than just making a lot of money and selling software. And so for the past 5 years, I've been on a mission to heal families, to heal marriages, to bring peace to the world, starting with family. I'd like to reverse the generational trauma that we've created for ourselves and the possibility of it continuing on to future generations, because I'm really concerned about how the family unit is deteriorating and how that's impacting our children and our children's children and our inability to love, and also our resistance to love. People saying, I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids because it's too hard. It's too painful. It's going to end up in divorce. And so we actually are denying who we are, and who we are is love. We were made for love, from love, to love. And yet so many of us are trying to do the opposite. And I think that's why we are feeling so broken and depressed and unfulfilled in life. No matter how many toys and cars and houses we have, there is still something missing. And I think there's a lot of people out there looking for that meaning in life, and have been taught to believe that happiness is the vacation, the house, the car, the success. And yes, as amazing as all those things are, I can tell you that having all those things doesn't make you happy. And we spend our entire life chasing this carrot that when we get that carrot, we realize that the carrot is actually not what we want. There's something else bigger that we want. So that's really the mission that I'm on.
Beautiful. This show is about success, but you can't have success without those quality relationships in life. And if you're not happy at home, or you're not happy with your relationships, your workmates, like, it's going to go into your professional life. So that's why I think it's really important to have this conversation about relationships, about love too, because if you're happy and in love, that's going to shine through, and that energy is going to shine through in your work, and you're going to become more confident and happy and successful in your professional life as well. So let's take it back into what you mentioned before. Wow, 17 years. Congrats on that, first of all, because it takes a lot of work and effort, and relationships. I've seen relationships, even with people that I know, that are going through rough times, or they've just drifted apart with their partners. And then there's a lot of resentment, content, and you know that if they don't do something about it, it's going to fall apart. And I'm learning constantly as well. I've read a book, How to Be the Love You Seek. I'm still reading it now. It's just fascinating. It talks about the trauma that you mentioned as well during our upbringing and with our parents as well. So that affects us in our relationships into adulthood. And I'm witnessing that myself because I've been through a lot of trauma in my life as well, but I've learned it and I've used it as fuel. So talk about generational trauma and how that manifests itself into our relationships in our adult life.
Yeah, I think this is why I'm so passionate about families, because family at the core of it is where we really learn how to love, how to share, how to communicate, how to be patient and humble. And there are more and more, as I see this unfolding, there are more and more people that don't have that chance. Maybe they don't have siblings. Maybe they don't have their dad in their life. Maybe they don't have their mom in their life. Or they're in a family that has mommy and daddy, but it's so tumultuous, it's so hostile, and they feel, right? Our children feel that unsafety, and that will continue on into life. So for me, 9 years old, that's what happened to me. My parents were a great couple. They went to church together. They had a business together. Being Filipino, there was always parties and karaoke and dancing and food. And yet, at 9 years old, my dad cheated on my mom with my mom's best friend and got her pregnant, and he left us. And I was 9, my sister was 6, and my brother was 3. And my dad was gone for about 3 years, and he came back because he got sick. He actually was on a transplant list for a kidney, and asked for my mom's forgiveness to take him back and take care of him. And for the next 13 years, we were great. And my mom forgave him, like literally. She never brought it up.
Wait, hang on. What about the other child and the other family?
He left them. He stayed with us for the rest until he passed away. But what was really amazing was that at my dad's funeral, guess who shows up? My half brother, who, by the way, is a spitting image of my father, like crazy. Like it just totally tripped me out. And I think that had he come into our life at a different time, I think the reaction may have been a little bit different. But because our dad had just passed away, he hadn't seen my father since he was, I think, 2 years old. There was this connection and this communal grief that we were going through. And because he hadn't really known my dad, it was the opportunity to educate him and to share with him everything about our father that he didn't really get to experience. And so my half brother is amazing. I love him. We say I love you to each other. We talk probably every couple weeks. He even calls my mom mom. My mom loves him. Like it's actually quite ideal. And yet, as an adult, I realized as I was in my 20s and starting to really prepare to have my own family, how although my dad and us completed the past, and when he passed, we were there with him, loving him, supporting him, forgiving him, all that stuff, there was still so much that I hadn't dealt with my father. And so that's where my work started. And it was during my divorce that I had to really look at myself and say, what is it about me that has me attract these kind of relationships or these kind of men into my life? And what I realized was that standing there, that little 9-year-old girl watching her dad leave, made 3 decisions that day that has followed me for the last 40-umpteen years. And those 3 decisions were, I can't trust men. I can't trust people. I'm unlovable because I was a daddy's girl. So if my dad was going to leave me, well, that means I must be unlovable, right? This is the 9-year-old subconscious. And then the third thing was that everybody I love will leave me. So of course, here I am getting involved with men who I knew were going to leave me anyway because I didn't feel worthy of love. And so the last 20 years has been me really healing that. And in healing that, really transforming my life, attracting my husband now, who is my perfect mate. There is not one thing I would change about this man. Nothing. And so having landed where I am now, here I am at 46, leaving corporate, even though I was making 130 grand a year, it feels so right. And I think in the past, I used to think to myself, Lord, why me? Why did I get bullied? Why did my dad leave? Like, why? And now, standing where I'm standing, I'm like, okay, I now see why I had to go through what I had to go through. Because now the people that I attract are going through the same things. And so I get to say to them, not only do I understand where you're coming from, I've been there. And I know what that's like. And at the end of the day, I realize if there's one thing that I can achieve for my clients, it's that they feel heard and that they feel that they're not alone in going through with whatever it is that they're going through. Because we make ourselves wrong. It's like, I shouldn't be going through this. And when I say, guess what? So many of us are going through it. We just don't talk about it. And there's hope on the other side. They can really start to heal that.
Wow, that's very incredibly moving, because I feel that too, because I've been through very similar with you as well. With my family, it was a broken family. I've gone through crazy, crazy times with my childhood as well. Very similar. I was in software sales. I worked at TikTok before and I was making a lot of money, but this here is like what I'm passionate about and helping people. There's a lot of things that I want to ask based on what you said, but you talked about your mum forgiving your dad after doing that. And that is so hard to do, because you can easily hold on to that anger and resentment. How does she do that? Is that because she is a strong believer in religion? Like, most people would not take them back. Pretty brutal betrayal. But
Yeah.
what can we learn from that forgiveness, and how do we release that anger?
Well, I definitely see at least two things there. Number one is my mom is a woman of God and woman of faith. And number two is she is so committed to family. And it was actually funny. I had this conversation with my mom a couple of weeks ago, and she admitted to me that that whole time she didn't actually know if my father truly, truly loved her. And I didn't know that, because as a child, watching my dad come back, it was as though nothing changed. It was as though she literally let everything go, and it was like it had never happened. But then she admitted to me a couple of weeks ago that she said to me, had it not been for you kids, I don't know if I would have taken him back. And so I think she just really wanted a father for her children. Because my mom's a very independent woman. She could have been without him, and she did it for us, not for herself. And so I think this comes back to the conversation around divorce, where people say, well, maybe divorce is better for everyone. Maybe for the short term. But I think because divorce is so easily accessible, I believe that people go there sometimes too quickly because they just want the pain to go away, but they don't realize that they're exchanging one pain for another pain. And the second pain that they don't realize they're creating is much, much more dangerous and much more long-term, right? I have clients who are in therapy for 25, 30, 40 years because of their mommy-daddy issues.
So how did you heal from this? Because you mentioned that you don't trust men and abandonment issues, and there was another thing that you mentioned as well. But how did you heal from that? I mean, your father came back, but
Trust.
Yeah, trust. Yeah. And then thinking that other people are going to always leave and not being worthy. So what are the steps that you took to slowly heal yourself?
I think the first thing we need to do is become aware that it's even happening, because I didn't know that that's what was going on. Right. And so I actually hired a coach to help me look to see the things that I can't see for myself. Right. It's like our blind spot. We can't see our own blind spot. We need someone else to actually point it out to us. So as soon as I saw that, now I could start to unpack that. And the only way that we as humans are going to be willing to change is that we have to be present to the impact of this way of thinking and being and acting and feeling. And so I realized, yeah, I was playing this victim role. It's like, poor me, my dad was this way. But then I realized, how can I have an extraordinary life? How can I fully give myself over to another man if I have all of these fears and beliefs that are low vibrational? And I really have to be able to shift that in order to attract the kind of man that I want to be with. And I think so many people put the onus on the outside world to bring them happiness, when really we got to work on ourselves. Because like you were talking about that book, right? There's this book that sounds similar. It's called Receiving the Love You Want. And really what he talks about is that we can only receive love to the level at which we love ourselves. It doesn't matter how much other people love us. If we don't love ourselves, we're going to diminish, avoid, neglect, discredit other people's love for us, right? So for example, how many times has my husband told me how beautiful and amazing and sexy I am? And my knee-jerk reaction is like, yeah, right. What do you want? What's your agenda? Do you just want to get in my pants? right? But he's so authentic and genuine. And if I don't watch myself, he will stop doing those things. And that's what happens, right? Our partner gives us love, and then we say, no, you don't love me, or whatever. And then they just stop trying. And then we wonder why we've disconnected and why they've stopped making the effort. It's because when they do make the effort, we squash it. And we're basically rejecting their love.
Okay, that's very powerful. A lot of people that go into relationships have things that happen to them, especially if it's their first love. Like for me, for example, my first love broke my heart and betrayed me as well. And that created a lot of wars, plus the trauma from my childhood experiences, negative things that have happened. I definitely built a lot of wars. That you hear it in songs as well, you know, breaking down the walls. You close your heart up, okay, and you don't let love in. And that's just a natural instinct. Because like what you said as well, not being able to trust men, feeling of abandonment, thinking that everyone's going to leave. But how do we slowly break down these walls for those who want to heal? How do we slowly do that as well and start to learn how to love ourselves? Can you share the steps that you teach people?
Well, there's so much there. The first thing I would say is we need to, first of all, acknowledge that that's what's happening, right? And once we realize that, the next step and the harder step is to look at, well, what is the impact of this way of being? Had I kept feeling that way, believing that that's how men were, that I was never meant to be loved, what kind of life is that going to create for me, right? Because what we believe becomes our reality. And so you actually have to make a conscious effort to change those thoughts, because you can't if love and joy and happiness is what you want, how are you going to get there from a place of fear and anger and sadness and resentment and all these things that we feel? Like, I've been cheated on many times. I've been lied to. I've even been molested. I've gone through a lot of stuff. I have a lot of reasons to hold grudges. But at the end of the day, what is any of that going to do to make us happy? It's not. And so forgiveness and self-love and self-compassion is so important. The problem is, most of us don't even know what that means, right? Oh yeah, I love myself. Sure I do. And yet we speak to ourselves like we would never speak like that to anybody else, right? You suck. You're not enough. You're a loser. You're a moron. How dumb of you. You're so clumsy. Like all these things that we talk to ourselves, but we don't even realize that we're talking to ourselves that way. For me, I grew up very...
Yes.
For me, I grew up in a very competitive type of role. And so I'm really hard on myself. And I'm also very competitive. I'm very driven. But I could also see how that actually was detrimental to me giving myself compassion. And so I actually had to heal all of the things that my dad did and forgive myself for the way that I took that and punished myself for the last 40 years. And so we look at, okay, how do we forgive other people, right? Is the question. How do we forgive that person who hurt us? Or you might say is, well, I want to forgive that person. I want to forgive my dad. I want to forgive my brother. I want to forgive my mom, but how? I can't. The reason that you can't do it is because you think that forgiveness is something that it's not. And so many people think forgiveness is about, well, if I forgive that person, does that make what they did correct or right? No, it doesn't. Forgiveness is about freeing ourselves from the emotional prison that we put ourselves into, no one else but ourselves. So like I said, those 3 beliefs that I created as a 9-year-old, no one said that to me. I said it to myself. And then I believed that for the last 30 years or whatever, 20 years or 10 years, right? And so I've been doing this work for over 20 years and it's still a daily practice. And so I think for people to understand, it's not this thing that you take this red magic pill and it all just magically goes away. It is a daily nurturing of yourself and continuing to catch yourself in the things that have been running the show that you don't even know is running the show. So one example I have is my husband was watching this show called Impractical Jokers. So it's these 4 men who are best friends and they pull pranks on each other and they're quite mean. Like to me, it's quite like, oh my gosh, I would never do that to my friends, but they do it to each other. And it triggered something within me and it triggered my feelings about being bullied as a kid. for being too short, too smart, too ugly, too whatever, too many braces, ugly hair, everything. And what I realized the trigger was I had a belief that no matter how smart I am, how good I am, how pretty I am, I will still get rejected. And I didn't even realize that that was running in the background. And I saw how that belief was impacting my business and the fears that held me back from actually doing the thing that I know to do.
Powerful, because we do that. That's called self-sabotaging. So how do you break free from these self-sabotaging behaviors? Because you've had to overcome a lot of challenges, and we all commonly do that as well. And I think given the things that we've been through in our past, we have these subconscious thoughts as well. And we have to be fully aware of what we're thinking. And I think it does take a lot of self-awareness as well. But how do we overcome these self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors?
Right. I think the first thing is we need to know our values. I think sometimes when we don't love ourselves, we take on other people's values that actually are not our own. And when we don't know what our values are, we don't know how to put up boundaries. And we don't know how to communicate those boundaries in a really powerful and loving way. The other thing that I see, especially with my clients, is that most people don't actually know what they want. They know what they don't want. They know what they're avoiding. They know what they're running away from. But when I say, okay, I got what you don't want, but what is it that you want? They look at me like I have two heads. Like, I've never thought about that. So no wonder these people are struggling, because all they can think about is what they don't want. And guess what? They get more of what they don't want. And so the practice is really figuring out, who are you? Who is it that you want to become? What is it that you want in your life? When you can get really clear about that, you can really start to attract the things that you do want in your life. And that's really what happened with me with my husband. After I came out of my divorce, I was like, okay, I need to sit down. Because what I saw was, in hindsight, hindsight's always 20/20. And what I saw was that I got married partly because I was afraid of being alone. Not so much that I wanted to be with this particular person, but I was like, if I don't say yes now, what if nobody else will ask me? And I don't want to be alone. And maybe this is the best I'm ever going to get. And that's a really dangerous place to come from.
It sounded like the self-worth wasn't there.
Yeah.
Talk about the values. Give us some examples of some great values to have to start making these changes.
Yeah. I'll share my values first. Okay. So my values, I have 5 values and they're all F's. So it's freedom, fun, family, faith, and flow. When my integrity is intact and those values are in alignment, I am hecka powerful. But when I am not doing that, I know that there's something up. And so if I feel frustrated or angry or whatever, like I'm disempowered, that's the first thing I go to is, what are my values am I not honoring right now? A lot of times it's fun because I'm such a hustler and I forget to have fun. And so I need to bring fun into my life. Or sometimes it's faith. Sometimes it's like I'm trying to do everything on my own and I forget to invite spirit to guide me. And so I think being really clear about what are your non-negotiables in your life? What are the elements that really bring you joy and power and feel really authentic to you? And that the things that you love in your life, what are the qualities that those things have? So for example, for me, I really looked at, what do I love? I love to travel. I would love to be able to work anywhere, stay anywhere, and work from anywhere in the world. So I realized, okay, freedom was something that was really important to me. And so I think it's just really knowing who you are and knowing what it is you want. And then from that, starting to design what those values are so you know what integrity looks like for you. It's a very personal thing. Every single person is different. Except sometimes we think that, oh, that person is who I want to become. And so I'm going to take on their values. But it's often not actually authentic. And so we really have to do the work to really dig deep to see what it is that we value. Like I used to think money was really high on my value list until I was making tons of money and it didn't make me happy. So I realized, okay, money is not one of my values, but there's something that money gives me. So what is that? It's the feeling of freedom. So then I realized it wasn't money, it was actually freedom.
Beautiful. That's some great values to live by and learn too as well. Okay, there's a couple of questions. Daily practices that you use. Have you got rituals, What are your daily practices that you use to
Yeah.
help you achieve your goals and your values?
Whenever I am feeling overwhelmed, anxious, burnt out, frustrated, I do journaling because the goal is to get the emotions out of your body and onto something else. So for me, that's paper. And then after I write all of my feelings, eventually, because I'm a very positive person, by the end of my writing, it's now twisted and I've now created something new for myself. And a lot of times, what I'll do is I'll actually rip up the paper that has all the negative energy and I let that go. The other thing I do is I pray in a very distinct way. I used to pray like, Lord, help me with this, help me with that, help me with this. And now I've taken a very empowered attitude towards it. Like, I already know it's coming. So instead of saying, Lord, help me with my business, help me find new clients, it's, Lord, thank you for the clients that are about to come. Thank you for the people who are listening to my podcast right now. Thank you for everything that I don't even know is coming yet. Because I have faith and trust that God has my back and that my life has always worked out. And so why wouldn't it work out? Especially when I know in my soul that what I'm doing is not for me. It's so much bigger than me. Yes, it was part of my own thought, but I know something, someone planted the seed in my head because the trajectory of my life, the way my life was going, this was not predictable. So there was some divine, I believe there was definitely some divine intervention in there.
Definitely have a great purpose and a great calling as well, helping people. And I love the fact that you mentioned the prayers, because we often pray, well, I do in stressful situations, like to give me the strength to be able to deal with, to give me the knowledge and whatnot. But that's definitely a beautiful way to flip it around, and just being grateful for that. And your flow and the feeling you get afterwards by being grateful, it helps your energy level to become more positive too, because we all have challenges, especially in business, stressful times. There's so many different challenges and roller coasters happening as well. So I love the way that you've changed that, flipped it around as well. How do you maintain resilience during challenging times?
One of the things that I've learned this year is to rest. I have a very naturally masculine energy, and it's always about, okay, let's work a 12-hour day. Let's push, 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 right? Coming from the sales world, that's okay. If you're not getting the results, you just got to work harder. And one of the things of this year was to learn to actually rest. And I remember my first coach, that was the thing she actually was coaching me on, is resting. And I'm like, how is resting going to make me more productive? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then one day I decided to take a week off by myself on an island without my husband, without my computer, and just focus on me and being creative. And the minute I got back, and ever since then, my business has escalated quite quickly. And so whenever I feel stuck, when I feel like my energy is not flowing as well, that's what I'll do, is I'll just either take the weekend off, I'll go to the spa. Like clockwork, as soon as I get back, I feel refreshed, I'm focused, and all of a sudden the clients just start coming. So for example, in November, the first week in November, I didn't have any new clients and I was kind of freaking out. And then I took 2 days off and I came back and I actually had the biggest month ever in my business. In 2 weeks, I got 12 new clients. I went from 0 to 12. I didn't do anything different. I just took that break.
Sometimes it's much needed.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned masculine energy too. When you mentioned the masculine energy, I'm like, yes, you're driven.
Yes.
You want to do so much. You're passionate about what you do, and you work.
Yes.
I don't know. Where does this masculine energy come from? Do you think it's upbringing, or because there's a feminine energy and there's masculine energy, and there's different parts of it too, because I've listened to other podcasts where they say that some females have too much masculine energy and that affects the male as well, because you need to let the male have the masculine energy and you're supposed to have some of the feminine energy as well. And sometimes males have that feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
So give us your thoughts, and, how can we make that energy work for us and our relationships to be better as well? And you're aware of it, self-aware of it, and I'm self-aware of it. I've got masculine. I'm very competitive and I'm very driven as well, and I love to work, and sometimes there needs to be a balance.
Yeah, like anything else, like even our food, right? Too much of anything is not good for us. Same thing with the masculine and feminine. It's not bad that we have masculine energy. We need it to get things done. That's what the masculine energy is about. And that's why mine is really strong, because as a child, I started competing in dance when I was 5. I started playing the piano when I was 6. By the time I was 8, I've probably won 10 different awards. And I was super smart in school, and my parents kept praising me and encouraging me to do really, really well. And so that's always the way I've been. I've been always super, super ambitious. But there is a cost when we go there too much, because it's actually not good for us to be too masculine, right? As women, we can't be creative inside the masculine. We can't have self-love and compassion and rest inside masculinity. That's all feminine energy. Feminine energy is also the community, the nurture, just that softer side, right? And I think one of the things that I had to learn recently is self-compassion, because I'm so hard on myself. And to be able to say, Jeanell, it's okay to fail. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be scared. And it doesn't mean anything about you. And you can actually honor that part. And when we can honor that part and stop feeling guilt and shame about trying to be someone that we're not, now self-love is possible. And inside of self-love, now we can really tune into like what's actually going inside of me, like what's going on in my body, what's going on in my mind, what's going on in my emotions, all of that. But we can't do it in this go, 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 shut off the emotions, just push. Like that's what I was taught in sales, right? You can't get upset. You just got to put on that armor, put on that thick skin and push. And because of that, I want a free trip to Rome, a top producer's trip. I want a free trip to Bermuda. I've won thousands of dollars of merchandise. I've gone on free shopping sprees. It has done really well for me in my life. And I was not very happy a lot of that time, thinking that that's what was going to make me happy. When I got that award, it would make me happy. And it did for a split second. What was the cost? The cost was I never saw my family. I never saw my husband. I barely went to the washroom. I barely ate. All it was just pushing until I could get this award called Win the Trip to Rome.
Yeah, it sounded like you had a lot of burnout as well.
100%. Yeah, I wasn't sleeping, right? I wasn't seeing my family. I wasn't having fun. I'm a very joyful and fun person. But when I was working, it was like I had to turn all of that off and just be this rock star that I was expected to be, until I realized I don't want to be that rock star anymore. When I left corporate, it was actually 5 days after I came back from Rome. Everyone in my company was like, but you just won like a top 1% award in Rome, and now you're leaving, you're quitting? That doesn't make any sense. And yeah, for the majority of people, that doesn't make sense. But for me, I was like, okay, I've climbed the mountain. I proved to myself I can do it, and I'm ready for the next challenge. And that challenge was entrepreneurship.
Straight into it, huh?
Right. And I wanted to do something that was so authentic to me. And so the question was, God, if I could create the perfect job or career that is so authentic to Jeanell, and no one else could do that job better than me, and that was my zone of genius, what would that look like? And so I really just marinated in that question for a few months. And then it came to me, and it was like, yeah, the one thing that I think I do really well at is I'm honest. I've done the work to transform my life, and I have this extraordinary marriage that people envy. And really what I want to do in the world is give that away to other people so that they know what is the formula to creating an extraordinary marriage or relationship. And that's what I teach.
Yeah, that's something I want to definitely unpack right now. So 17 years, this is the juicy bit now. So every marriage requires a work on both people. So how do you make it last so long? What are the key steps and advice that you can give to make a relationship thrive, and not just do it just for the kids, but to be happy and loving? I know that there's communication, but give us some advice to make a lasting relationship a successful relationship, because we all know that there's certain things like communication, sex, regularly spending time together, having playfulness. I've heard that definitely helps as well. Also aligning your visions and saying it from the start together what your goals are. And I'm fascinated about how to make a relationship last. So give us some of your advice.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to speak from experience. If I could tell you the top 5 things that make me and Mike different than anyone else that I know, it would be these things. Number 1, we don't try to change each other. We love each other so completely for who we are and who we're not. And even when I mess up, even when I forget my anniversary or forget to pick up that thing from the grocery store that my husband asked me to pick up on the way home, there's been times when I've gone out with girlfriends and he'll like, hey, can you bring me back a muffin or a thing? I completely forget. I'm the man in the relationship, like the more masculine one between the two of us. But my husband doesn't hold it against me. He's like, hey, honey, it's okay. You forgot. It's all right. Like, he just has so much compassion for my humanity. And same thing with him. My husband's very sensitive and he apologizes for being so sensitive. And I'm like, baby, it's okay. It's okay to feel all these things. Number 2, I would say, is show up. So we keep things fresh inside and outside the bedroom. And we're up for anything. So if I say to my husband, hey, baby, let's go salsa dancing. Let's go paint night. He's always game. And if he says to me, babe, I want to go to the Lego Transformers exhibition, I'm like, sure, if that's what makes you happy, we just want each other to be happy. Because we know when we do that, we love ourselves more, we love each other more, and the energy between us is safety, there's trust, there's friendship, and there's playfulness. But when there's gunk in between us, let's say we're bringing up old stuff, that fight we had 2 years ago, what is that going to do to fulfill this commitment to love and partnership? It's not. And so we're very intentional about how we speak to each other, the energy between us, even picking the battles of like, what are the arguments that I'm going to fight for? And what are the arguments that are like, you know what, this really doesn't make any difference. And I'm just going to shut my mouth and just like, let it go. Let him win. Instead of me trying to be right about something, I'm just like, you know what? You can feel however you feel. I'm not going to say anything. Because I feel like I'm such a debater. Like I kind of just want to say, no, you're not, or no, it's not every time and give my 2 bits. But I'm like, well, what's that going to do? Is that going to add to anything? No. Okay, well, then I'm just going to shut up. The 3rd thing, you talked about playfulness. I think that's really important to have humor and like silliness. And like my husband will do these crazy dances just for shits and giggles. He will try to put my name into every song he hears. Like it's so cheesy and corny, but he knows I love it. He's willing to make a fool of himself for me. And I love that about him. I think another thing is knowing each other's love language. I know that my husband's love language is verbal affirmations and physical touch. So whenever he's in breakdown and he's upset, I know he just needs to hear, I love you, everything's going to be okay, and he needs a hug and a kiss. That's all he needs from me. And he knows for me, what I need, what my love language is service. And so here I am working till 8, 9 o'clock at night. He's taking care of dinner. He's cleaning the house. He's making sure that I eat and I do the things that I need to do. He serves me, and it pleases him that I allow him to serve me. So going back to that masculine, feminine energy, I think sometimes as women, we try to do everything. We go, we don't need you men. I got my own money. I can do my own thing. But then now our partners are like, well, then what's my purpose? Like, I have no purpose if you're going to do everything. So like I'm 4'10" and I'm always climbing the cabinets. And my husband's like, just tell me and I'll do that for you. And I'm like, no, baby, I can do it myself. But he reminded me, he's like, but I like doing these things for you. I like helping you. And if you're going to do everything, then there's no purpose for me. And so I allow him to do these things because I know he loves. And then, of course, I appreciate him. I would say that's number 4. Appreciation and acknowledgement. I think we're so chintzy when it comes to that. A lot of people will say, I don't feel appreciated. I said, okay, well, here's your assignment. Go and appreciate your partner. And they go, why? But he didn't do anything. I said, why does someone have to do something to be appreciated? Do we not appreciate our children? Our children don't do anything. If anything, they do the opposite. They suck us dry. But yet we appreciate them because we want to build them up. Same thing with our partners. We want to build them up. I tell my husband every single day, I am the luckiest girl on the planet. You are the perfect partner for me. Thank you for everything you do every single day. And inside that acknowledgement, he is now motivated to continue to give to me. And so you create this beautiful cyclical energy that is very effortless. And so if you were to ask my husband to describe our marriage in one word, the one word he would use, and I know this because I asked him this question, is easy. That's how he would describe our marriage. Easy. And I think that's great.
That's very inspiring. We should all aspire to be like that. And it takes a lot of work, but you've given us some great tips and all that. So, what books or mentors have made a huge impact and have helped you with your journey?
Well, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, definitely. Brene Brown, she really talks about vulnerability and shame and guilt and courage and bravery. Her latest book is Atlas of the Heart, which is really great. It's kind of like a encyclopedia of emotions. So for those that don't really understand, like, what's the difference between shame and guilt, it's kind of like that kind of book. But she talks about just loving our imperfections and acknowledging them. And instead of trying to shut those emotions down, to lean into that. I like Gottman books, but the guy I really like is Harville Hendricks. And he wrote the book, Receiving the Love You Want and Getting the Love You Want. And so his first book is really about our childhood and how we set up expectations about what we want in a relationship based on our parents. And then Receiving the Love You Want is really about how we can only receive the level of love at which we think we deserve it.
Self-worth and self-love. I've heard that with my other podcast guests as well too. So once you can conquer that and master that, that will help bring out the love to the world as well. It's been a really fascinating interview, and I hope you guys, the audience, have had a lot of value from this. And if you did, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe, because it does help the channel grow and it helps me bring on amazing guests like Jeanell as well. So what key lessons from your journey do you want to leave with our audience?
Be the change you wish to see. If you want
that.
love, give love. If you want forgiveness, give forgiveness. If you want to be accepted, accept other people. You got to be the change.
Very inspiring indeed. Finally, where can people find you?
They can find me at saveourmarriage.ca or at jeanellgreene.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.